Harrison Northcott stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the Seattle skyline fade into dusk, and wondered if the hollow ache in his chest would ever truly disappear. 3 years had passed since he had lost Sarah, his wife of 12 years, to cancer, and though he had thrown himself into building his commercial real estate empire, the loneliness still crept in during quiet moments like these. He was 42 years old, wealthy beyond measure, and completely uninterested in the future his friends kept insisting he deserved. "Harrison, the Henderson proposal needs your signature before you leave tonight." His assistant Marcus appeared in the doorway, holding a leather portfolio. "Just leave it on the desk. I'll handle it." Harrison did not turn around. He heard Marcus hesitate, then retreat without another word. His employees had learned not to push him, especially not about personal matters. They respected his grief, his distance, the walls he had built around himself since Sarah's death. He signed the papers mechanically, grabbed his coat, and headed down to the parking garage. The drive to his waterfront home in Madison Park took 20 minutes, during which he listened to NPR and tried not to think about how Sarah used to fill car rides with chatter about her day, her students, the book she was reading. She had been a high school English teacher, passionate and warm, everything Harrison was not naturally inclined to be. She had softened his edges, made him laugh, reminded him there was more to life than deal-making and profit margins. Now his house echoed with emptiness. He ate dinner alone most nights, usually something his housekeeper had prepared and left in the refrigerator. Tonight it was grilled salmon and roasted vegetables. He sat at the kitchen island rather than the formal dining table because eating there alone felt too depressing, too much like admitting defeat. His phone buzzed. A text from his older sister Caroline. "Stop ignoring me. Dinner this Sunday, no excuses." Harrison sighed and typed back, "Fine." Caroline meant well, but her attempts to fix him up with various eligible women had become exhausting. He had gone on exactly 2 dates in the past year, both disasters orchestrated by well-meaning friends. One woman had talked exclusively about her yoga retreat in Bali. The other had made it clear she was more interested in his bank account than anything else. Harrison had no interest in repeating those experiences. Sunday arrived too quickly. Caroline lived in a sprawling house in Bellevue with her husband David and their 3 teenage kids. The place was always full of noise and activity, a stark contrast to Harrison's silent existence. He brought wine and braced himself for whatever matchmaking scheme his sister had cooked up this time. But when he arrived, there was no strange woman waiting to be introduced. Just family, plus Caroline's neighbor Tom and his wife. Harrison relaxed slightly and accepted a beer from David. "No setup today?" he asked Caroline quietly while helping her in the kitchen. She gave him a look that was half exasperation, half affection. "I am taking a break from trying to manage your love life. You have made it abundantly clear you are not interested." "Thank you. However," she continued, stirring something on the stove, "I do think you need to consider the possibility that you might be lonely. That maybe Sarah would not want you to spend the rest of your life alone." Harrison set down the salad bowl he had been carrying with more force than necessary. "Caroline, I appreciate your concern, but I am fine." "You are not fine. You are existing. There is a difference." He did not have a response to that, because she was right. He was just going through the motions day after day, building wealth he did not particularly care about, filling time until he could sleep, waking up to do it all again. Dinner was pleasant enough. Caroline's kids entertained everyone with stories about their various activities. Tom talked about his new boat. Harrison contributed when expected but mostly observed, feeling like a ghost at his own life. On his way out, Caroline caught his arm. There is a charity gala next month. The Children's Hospital. You donated a significant amount last year. You should go. I'll send a check. Harrison, you should go. Get out of your office and your empty house. Be around people. I am not asking you to find a wife. I am asking you to rejoin the living. Something in her voice made him pause. Maybe it was the genuine worry in her eyes. Maybe it was his own exhaustion with the numbness. I'll think about it. I already bought you a ticket. It is in 3 weeks. Please go. He shook his head but found himself half smiling despite his irritation. You are impossible. I am your sister. It is my job. The 3 weeks passed in their usual blur of meetings, site visits, and contract negotiations. Harrison's company specialized in large-scale commercial developments, and they currently had projects in 4 states. He was good at what he did, ruthlessly efficient and instinctively talented at seeing potential where others saw only problems. Work was the one area of his life where he still felt competent, purposeful. The night of the gala, he almost backed out. He stood in his bedroom in his tuxedo, looking at his reflection and feeling ridiculous. What was the point of going to some fancy party where he would make small talk with people he barely knew? But he had promised Caroline, and Harrison kept his promises. The event was being held at the Four Seasons. The ballroom transformed into an elegant space with soft lighting and flowers everywhere. Harrison checked in, accepted a glass of champagne he had no intention of drinking, and steeled himself for a long evening. He recognized several people from Seattle's business community and made his way through the expected greetings and handshakes. Harrison Northcott, I thought that was you. Charles Henderson, one of his business partners, appeared with his wife. They chatted about the upcoming Henderson project for a few minutes before Charles was pulled away by someone else. Harrison found himself standing near the edge of the room, watching couples dance, feeling profoundly out of place. This had been a mistake. He would stay another 30 minutes, then leave. He had fulfilled his obligation to Caroline. He was planning his escape route when he noticed her. She was standing by one of the tall windows overlooking the city, alone, wearing a deep green dress that looked elegant but not ostentatious. Her dark hair was pulled back, revealing a graceful neck and delicate features. But it was not her appearance that caught his attention. It was the expression on her face. She looked as lost and uncomfortable as he felt, like she was trying to disappear into the curtains. Harrison did not know what made him approach her. He had spent 3 years actively avoiding situations like this. But something about her lonely figure pulled at him. "Plotting your escape?" he asked when he reached her side. She startled, then turned to look at him. Her eyes were a striking blue-gray, and up close he could see faint shadows beneath them, the kind that came from too many sleepless nights. He recognized that exhaustion. "Is it that obvious?" she asked, and there was something in her voice, a warmth despite the weariness that made him want to keep talking to her, only to someone doing the same thing. He extended his hand. "Harrison Northcott, Julia Fraser." Her handshake was firm, businesslike. "Are you here supporting the hospital? My sister bought me a ticket and threatened me with bodily harm if I did not show up." "You?" A flicker of a smile crossed her face. "My best friend works in the pediatric oncology unit. She has been trying to get me out of my house for months." This was her latest attempt. There was something in the way she said it, an underlying sadness that resonated with his own. Before he could stop himself, he asked, "How long?" She understood immediately what he was asking. 2 years, you, 3. They stood in silence for a moment, and it was the most comfortable Harrison had felt in longer than he could remember. Here was someone who understood, who carried the same weight, who did not need explanations or platitudes. "You want to get out of here." The words came out before he had fully thought them through. There is a decent coffee shop around the corner that stays open late. Julia looked surprised, then considering. I probably should stay. Anna will notice if I disappear too early. We could tell her you are leaving with someone. Technically, you would be. That earned him a real smile, and Harrison felt something shift in his chest, a crack in the ice that had encased his heart for so long. That is possibly the most practical approach to ditching a party I have ever heard. I am nothing if not practical. She laughed, and the sound was like light breaking through clouds. Okay, let me find Anna and tell her I am leaving. Meet you in the lobby in 5 minutes. I'll be there. Harrison made his own exit, nodding to a few people but not stopping to chat. He felt almost giddy, which was absurd. He was just getting coffee with a stranger. It meant nothing, but it felt like something, like a small rebellion against the grief that had defined him for so long. Julia appeared in the lobby exactly 5 minutes later, having traded her heels for flats she had apparently stashed in her bag. I learned to always bring backup shoes to these things, she explained. Nothing kills an evening faster than painful feet. They walked the 3 blocks to the coffee shop, making small talk about the gala, the weather, neutral topics that felt like a warm-up to something more substantial. The coffee shop was cozy, half full with students and night owls. They ordered, Harrison insisting on paying despite Julia's protest, and found a table in the corner. So, Julia said, wrapping her hands around her cappuccino, what does Harrison Northcott do when he is not being forced to attend charity galas, commercial real estate development? I know, not exactly exciting cocktail party conversation. I do not know. I find real estate kind of fascinating. All those buildings and spaces, creating places where people live and work. There is something significant about that. Harrison found himself leaning forward. Most people's eyes glaze over when I talk about my work. Well, I am a land use attorney, so maybe I am predisposed to find it interesting. I spend my days dealing with zoning regulations and development permits. You are a lawyer. He could hear the surprise in his own voice and winced. Sorry, that came out wrong. It is okay. I get it a lot. People expect lawyers to be more, I do not know, severe. She took a sip of her coffee. I used to work for a big firm downtown, 80-hour weeks and constant pressure. After my husband died, I could not do it anymore. Now I work for a small practice in Kirkland. Fewer hours, smaller cases, but it is enough. What was his name? Harrison asked gently. Michael. He was a firefighter. There was an accident at a warehouse fire. He went in to make sure everyone was out. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the pain underneath. He was 38. We had been married for 10 years. Sarah was a teacher, cancer. We knew it was coming, had time to prepare, though I am not sure that actually made it easier. No, I do not think it does. Different kinds of hard, maybe, but not easier. They talked for 2 hours. The conversation flowed easily, moving from their losses to their lives before, to books and movies and the city they both loved. Julia was smart and funny, with a dry sense of humor that caught Harrison off guard in the best way. She did not try to impress him, did not perform or posture. She was just herself, tired and sad and still somehow full of light. I should get home, she said finally, checking her watch. I have an early meeting tomorrow with a client who wants to build a house on a lot that is probably unbuildable, but he refuses to believe me. Harrison did not want the evening to end. Can I see you again? She looked at him for a long moment, and he could see her wrestling with the same feelings he was experiencing. Fear, guilt, hope, confusion. I do not know if that is a good idea. Why not? Because I am not sure I am ready. Because I still wear my wedding ring sometimes when I am feeling particularly lonely. Because the idea of starting something with someone new feels like betraying Michael, even though I know logically that is not true. I understand all of that. I feel the same way. Harrison reached across the table and gently took her hand. But I have not felt this comfortable with another person since Sarah died. I am not asking for anything big, just maybe another coffee, another conversation. Julia looked down at their hands, then back up at his face. Just coffee. Just coffee. No pressure, no expectations. She nodded slowly. Okay, just coffee. They exchanged numbers, and Harrison walked her to her car, an older Honda that she clearly loved based on how well maintained it was. He watched her drive away and stood on the sidewalk for a moment, feeling more alive than he had in years. Caroline called him the next morning. I heard from Anna that you left the gala with a woman. A woman. Please tell me this is true and I am not being pranked. We got coffee. That is all. Harrison Northcott got coffee with a woman he met at a party. Alert the media. Who is she? Her name is Julia. She is a lawyer. And before you get too excited, we are just getting to know each other. As friends. Friends is good. Friends is a start. I am so happy I could cry. Please do not cry. It was just coffee. But it was not just coffee, and Harrison knew it. He found himself thinking about Julia constantly over the next few days. The way she had looked at the city lights, the sound of her laugh, the understanding in her eyes when they talked about loss. He wanted to call her but did not want to seem too eager, too desperate. She texted him first, 3 days later. Still up for that coffee, or was that just something you said to be polite? He replied immediately. Definitely still up for it. When are you free? They met that Saturday at a different coffee shop, this one in Kirkland near her office. It was a sunny April day, unseasonably warm, and they ended up walking along the waterfront after getting their drinks. I have a confession, Julia said as they strolled past the marina. I looked you up online after we met. I hope that is not creepy, Harrison laughed. I did the same thing, found your firm's website, saw your bio. Did you read the part about how I volunteer at the animal shelter on weekends? That is new. I started about 6 months ago. I needed something to do with my time, something that felt useful. What do you do there? Mostly I walk dogs and clean cages. Very glamorous work for someone with a law degree. She grinned at him. But the dogs do not care about my credentials. They are just happy to see me. It is nice to be around that kind of uncomplicated joy. I cannot remember the last time I did something like that, something that was not about work or obligation. What did you used to do before? She asked it carefully, and he appreciated her tact. Sarah and I used to hike a lot. She loved being outdoors. We would drive out to the Cascades on weekends, find some trail, spend the day walking and talking. I have not been hiking since she died. It felt wrong without her. Julia nodded. Michael and I used to cook together. He was actually the better cook, which he loved to brag about. I have not made most of our favorite recipes since the accident. I stick to simple things now. They walked in silence for a while, comfortable with each other's company. Harrison noticed how Julia stopped to admire a sailboat, how she smiled at a child feeding ducks with his parents. She was present in a way he had forgotten how to be, engaged with the world despite her sadness. You have kids? He asked. No, we talked about it, but we kept putting it off. Career stuff, money worries, all the usual reasons people delay. Then suddenly there was no more time. She paused. Do you? No, Sarah could not have children. It was something we made peace with mostly. We talked about adoption but never followed through. I think we always assumed we had more time too. That is the cruelest part, is it not? Realizing how much you took time for granted. They had coffee together again the following week, then dinner the week after that. It was not dating. They both insisted, just two people who understood each other spending time together. But Harrison felt himself looking forward to seeing her with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified him. He found himself noticing things he wanted to tell her about, saving up stories and observations for their next meeting. Caroline noticed the change immediately. "You look different," she said when he came to Sunday dinner 6 weeks after the gala. "Lighter somehow." "I've been spending time with Julia. The woman from the gala, Harrison, that is wonderful. Tell me everything." "There is not much to tell. We have coffee, we talk. She is easy to be with." "You have feelings for her?" Harrison considered the question. "I do not know what I am feeling. It has been so long since I felt anything other than grief and exhaustion. I like being around her. I think about her constantly. But I also feel guilty, like I am cheating on Sarah's memory." Caroline squeezed his shoulder. "Sarah would want you to be happy. You know that. Knowing it intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things." Julia was wrestling with similar feelings. She told him as much during a walk through the Arboretum in early June. They had been seeing each other regularly for 2 months now, and the line between friendship and something more had grown increasingly blurred. "My therapist asked me last week if I was dating you," she said, stopping to examine a flowering dogwood. "I told her no, we were just friends. But then she asked if I wanted it to be more than that, and I did not know what to say." Harrison's heart was pounding. "What do you want it to be?" She turned to face him, her expression vulnerable. "I am terrified. The idea of caring about someone that much again, of risking that kind of loss, it feels impossible. But when I am with you, I feel like maybe I could do it. Maybe I could be brave enough to try. I am terrified too. I keep waiting for the guilt to overwhelm me, for it to feel like a betrayal. But mostly I just feel grateful that I met you. So what do we do?" Harrison reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the first deliberately intimate gesture he had made. "Maybe we just take it slow, see where this goes. No rushing, no pressure." Julia leaned into his touch. "Slow sounds good." He kissed her for the first time right there among the spring flowers, a gentle tentative kiss that felt like a promise and a question all at once. When they pulled apart, Julia was smiling through tears. "Okay," he asked. "Very okay." They were a couple after that, though they kept it quiet at first, neither quite ready to announce it to the world. Harrison brought her to Caroline's for dinner a month later, and his sister was so obviously delighted that he could not help but laugh. "I like her," Caroline told him while Julia was in the bathroom. "She is good for you." You smile again. It was true. Harrison felt like he was waking up from a long, dark sleep. Colors seemed brighter, food tasted better, work was engaging rather than just a way to fill time. Julia made him want to be present in his life again. They moved slowly, careful with each other's hearts. Harrison did not push when Julia canceled plans because she was having a hard day. She did not take it personally when he grew quiet and distant on what would have been his wedding anniversary. They both understood that grief did not disappear just because you fell in love again. It was something you carried, something that shaped you, and they made room for that in their relationship. Harrison met Julia's best friend Anna, the pediatric oncology nurse, over drinks one evening. Anna was protective and direct, pulling Harrison aside at one point to say, "She has been through hell. If you hurt her, I will make you regret it." "I have no intention of hurting her. I care about her deeply." Anna studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Good. She deserves to be happy." "You both do." Julia met Caroline's family, spent time with Harrison's business partners, slowly integrated herself into his life. Harrison did the same with hers, meeting her parents who lived in Spokane, her brother and his family. Everyone could see how happy they made each other. As summer turned to fall, they began staying over at each other's places, learning each other's habits and quirks. Harrison discovered that Julia sang in the shower, that she was hilariously competitive about board games, that she cried at commercials featuring dogs. Julia learned that Harrison was obsessive about his morning coffee routine, that he read biographies of historical figures before bed, that he had a talent for fixing things around the house. "I love you," Harrison said one October evening as they cooked dinner together in his kitchen. He had not planned to say it, but suddenly it was the only thing he wanted her to know. Julia looked up from chopping vegetables, her eyes wide. "What? I love you. I am in love with you. I did not think I would ever feel this way again, but I do." She set down the knife and walked over to him, cupping his face in her hands. "I love you too. So much it scares me sometimes. Me too. But it is a good kind of scared, the very best kind." They made love for the first time that night, tender and passionate and occasionally awkward as they learned each other's bodies. Afterward, lying tangled in Harrison's sheets, Julia traced patterns on his chest. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly. Harrison tensed slightly. "Okay." "I still have moments where I feel guilty. Where I wake up and forget that Michael is gone, and then I remember and I feel like I am drowning all over again. It is less frequent now, but it still happens." "I understand. I have those moments too with Sarah. I do not think they ever completely go away. I just need you to know that it is not about you. It is not about us. You make me happy in ways I never thought I would be happy again, but the grief is still there, underneath everything." Harrison pulled her closer. "I know, we carry it together now. Both of us. That is okay." Winter arrived, and with it the holidays which they both had been dreading. Julia's family invited them to Spokane for Thanksgiving, and Harrison's immediate reaction was panic. Meeting the family for a holiday felt significant, official, real in a way that scared him. But Julia wanted him there, and he wanted to be wherever she was, so he agreed. Julia's parents were warm and welcoming, her father a retired postal worker, her mother a part-time librarian. Her brother Ryan and his wife had 3 young kids who immediately adopted Harrison as a jungle gym. It was chaotic and loud, and everything Harrison's quiet, solitary life had not been for years. "You doing okay?" Julia asked him when they escaped to the back porch for a breather after dinner. "I am actually having a really good time. Your family is wonderful. They like you. My mom told me in the kitchen that she is glad I found someone who makes me laugh again." Harrison wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "I am glad I found you. Best charity gala I have ever been forced to attend." Julia laughed and turned in his arms to kiss him. "Take me home soon. I love my family, but I want you to myself." They drove back to Seattle the next day, stopping at small towns along the way, making the journey an adventure rather than just a commute. Harrison felt settled in a way he had not experienced since Sarah's death. Not settled like giving up, but settled like finding home. Christmas was harder. Both of them had strong memories and traditions tied to their late spouses. They decided to create new traditions together, spending Christmas Eve with Caroline's family and Christmas Day volunteering at the shelter where Julia worked. "Michael and I used to do this sometimes," Julia said as she walked a happy golden retriever around the yard. "Volunteer on holidays." He said it kept things in perspective. "He sounds like he was a good man." "He was. You would have liked him." She paused, then added, "I think he would have liked you too. He would be glad I was not alone." Harrison felt emotion tighten his throat. "I think Sarah would have liked you as well. She always said I needed someone to make me less serious, to remind me to enjoy life. You do that for me." They went home that evening and exchanged simple gifts. Harrison gave Julia a first edition of her favorite book, something he had hunted down through a rare book dealer. Julia gave him a framed photograph she had taken of the Seattle skyline at sunset from the exact spot where they had first talked at the gala. "So we never forget where this started," she said. "Winter gave way to spring. marking a year since they had met. Harrison could hardly believe how much his life had changed. He was still building his real estate empire, still working long hours, but now there was balance. There was Julia waiting at home, dinners together, lazy Sunday mornings, someone to share both the mundane and the significant moments with. They were having dinner at a nice restaurant in April, almost exactly a year after the gala, when Harrison felt his pocket for the small box he had been carrying for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. "You look nervous," Julia observed. "What is going on?" Harrison took a deep breath. This was terrifying and right and long overdue. "I have been thinking about our future." "Okay." Julia set down her fork, giving him her full attention. "When I lost Sarah, I thought my life was over. Not literally, but emotionally. I could not imagine ever feeling whole again, ever wanting to share my life with someone. Then I met you, and slowly, piece by piece, you put me back together." He pulled out the box and opened it, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "I know we have both been through hell. I know we are both still healing, but I cannot imagine spending the rest of my life with anyone but you. Julia Fraser, will you marry me?" Julia's eyes filled with tears. Her hand shook as she reached across the table to touch his face. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." Harrison slipped the ring on her finger, and around them the restaurant broke into applause. Julia laughed through her tears and pulled him in for a kiss. "I love you so much," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too. Always." They were married that September in a small ceremony at the Arboretum where Harrison had first kissed her. Caroline stood as Harrison's best woman, insisting she had earned the role by refusing to give up on him. Anna was Julia's maid of honor, beaming with happiness for her friend. During the ceremony, they each took a moment to honor their late spouses, acknowledging the love that had shaped them and the loss that had brought them together. There was not a dry eye in the audience. "I never thought I would stand here again," Harrison said during his vows. "I never thought I would promise my life to someone, open my heart to that kind of vulnerability. But Julia, you showed me that love does not replace love. It adds to it. You did not erase my past. You made space for it while building a future with me. I promise to love you, to support you, to remember where we came from while looking forward to where we are going. I promise to be brave enough to keep choosing love, even when it is scary, because you are worth it." Julia was crying as she said her own vows. "Harrison, you met me at my lowest point and never tried to fix me or rush me or make me into something I was not. You let me be sad when I needed to be sad and helped me find joy when I was ready. You taught me that I am strong enough to love again, that my heart is big enough to hold both grief and happiness. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your home. I promise to keep showing up, keep choosing us, keep building this beautiful, complicated life we have created together." The reception was joyful and intimate, full of people who loved them and had supported them through the darkest times. Harrison danced with Julia under string lights as the sun set, feeling more content than he ever thought possible. "Happy?" Julia asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "Unbelievably happy. You, so happy I keep waiting for someone to wake me up and tell me it was a dream. It is real, we are real, and we get to do this for the rest of our lives." They honeymooned in Italy. 2 weeks of wandering through ancient cities, eating incredible food and marveling at their good fortune to have found each other. They talked about the future, about the life they wanted to build. "I want kids," Julia said one night as they sat on the balcony of their hotel in Florence. "I know we are both over 40 and it might not be easy or even possible, but I want to try. I want to create a family with you." Harrison felt a surge of hope and fear. "I want that too. I did not think I would ever have the chance, but with you, I want everything." They tried for several months with no success. Julia's doctor gently suggested that given their ages and the stress both had been under for years, natural conception might be difficult. They discussed options: fertility treatments, adoption, fostering. "What do you want to do?" Harrison asked after a particularly discouraging appointment. "I think I want to adopt. I know you and Sarah talked about it. Maybe this is meant to be our path." Julia looked at him anxiously. "But I want you to be completely on board. This has to be something we both want." Harrison thought about it for several days. He had always been a careful, methodical decision-maker, but some things he had learned you had to feel rather than think through. And when he imagined their future, he saw children, a house full of noise and laughter and life. "Let's do it. Let's adopt." The process was longer and more complicated than either had anticipated. There were home studies and background checks, interviews and paperwork. They took parenting classes, renovated 2 bedrooms in Harrison's house, prepared themselves emotionally for the possibility of disappointment. 14 months after they started the process, they got the call. A sibling pair, a 5-year-old girl named Emma and her 3-year-old brother Lucas, needed a home. Their mother had died of an overdose, no father in the picture, and the foster system was trying to keep them together. "They have been through significant trauma," the social worker explained. "They will need patience, stability, probably therapy. This will not be easy." Harrison and Julia looked at each other. They knew about trauma, about loss, about rebuilding after everything fell apart. "When can we meet them?" Meeting Emma and Lucas was both wonderful and heartbreaking. Emma was wary, protective of her little brother, clearly used to being the one in charge. Lucas was quieter, clinging to his sister, watching the adults with wide, uncertain eyes. Julia sat on the floor at their level. "Hi, Emma. Hi, Lucas. My name is Julia and this is Harrison. We are hoping you might want to come live with us." "Do you have a dog?" Emma asked, her chin raised defiantly. "Not yet, but we could get one if you wanted," Harrison said, earning a surprised look from Julia. He shrugged. What were they going to do, say no to the kid? That cracked Emma's tough exterior just a little. "I always wanted a dog." They spent supervised visits getting to know the children over the next month. Harrison found himself falling completely in love with both of them. Emma's fierce protectiveness, Lucas's shy smiles, the way they looked out for each other. Julia was a natural with them, patient and warm, never pushing but always present. The day they brought Emma and Lucas home was both joyful and terrifying. Harrison carried their meager belongings while Julia held Lucas's hand and Emma walked slightly ahead, trying to seem unimpressed but clearly curious about the big house. "This is your room," Julia said to Emma, showing her a space they had decorated with soft colors and a bookshelf full of books. "You can change anything you want, make it yours." Emma's eyes went wide. "Just mine. Lucas does not have to share. Lucas has his own room right next door. You each get your own space." For the first time, Emma's tough facade crumbled a little. Really, really. Those first few months were challenging. Emma had nightmares and attachment issues. Lucas was scared of loud noises and cried for his mother. Harrison and Julia took turns comforting them, researching trauma-informed parenting, attending therapy sessions with them. "I do not know if I am doing this right," Harrison admitted to Julia one night after a particularly difficult day where Emma had thrown a tantrum and Lucas had refused to eat. "I do not think there is a right way. I think we just keep showing up, keep loving them, keep being consistent. They will learn to trust us eventually." Caroline was an enormous help, her own kids showering their new cousins with attention and acceptance. Julia's parents came to visit and were instantly smitten with their new grandchildren. Slowly, with support and love and extraordinary patience, Emma and Lucas began to settle in. The breakthrough came about 6 months after the adoption was finalized. Harrison was reading to Lucas before bed, and the little boy suddenly climbed into his lap and said, "I love you, Daddy." Harrison's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, buddy, so much." That same week, Emma asked Julia if she could call her mom. Julia had to excuse herself to cry in the bathroom, overwhelmed with gratitude and love. They got a golden retriever puppy that Christmas, and Emma named her Hope, which felt perfect. The dog was chaotic and exhausting and exactly what their family needed. Harrison would come home from work to find Emma teaching Hope tricks while Lucas drew pictures of the dog. "Our life is insane," Julia said one evening as they watched the kids play in the backyard with the dog. "I know. It is perfect, is it not?" She leaned against him. "Beyond perfect. I cannot believe this is our life now. Two broken people who learned to love again. Two broken people who found their way back to wholeness. Together." Years passed in a blur of school plays and soccer games, scraped knees and birthday parties. Emma grew into a confident, compassionate teenager who wanted to be a therapist to help other kids who had been through trauma. Lucas was quieter but showed a remarkable talent for music, spending hours at the piano they had bought him. Harrison scaled back his work hours, wanting to be present for the kids. Julia moved to part-time at her law firm, both of them prioritizing family over career in a way they never would have imagined in their previous lives. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they renewed their vows in the same spot in the arboretum where they had married, this time with Emma and Lucas standing beside them. Emma read a poem she had written about family and second chances. Lucas played a piece on the violin he had learned specifically for the occasion. "A decade," Julia said that night as they sat on their back porch, watching Emma and Lucas roast marshmallows with Caroline's kids. 10 years since you approached me at that gala. Best decision I ever made." "Well, second best. First was proposing to you. Third was adopting the kids, tied for first. Cannot rank them." Julia laughed and kissed him. "We have built something beautiful, have we not? Something neither of us thought we would ever have." Harrison looked at their family, this unexpected gift that had emerged from loss and grief and the courage to be vulnerable again. "We have built everything." Emma came running over. "Mom, Dad, Lucas says the marshmallows are better burnt, but that is obviously wrong. Can you settle this?" "They are better golden brown," Julia said diplomatically. "But the burnt ones have more flavor." Lucas protested, joining them on the porch. Harrison ruffled Lucas's hair. "How about we agree that all marshmallows are good and stop arguing about it?" The kids rolled their eyes in perfect teenage synchronization, but went back to their cooking with smiles on their faces. "They are growing up so fast," Julia said softly. "They are. But we have time. So much time to love them, to be a family, to keep building this life." That night, after the kids were in bed and the house was finally quiet, Harrison and Julia stood together in their bedroom. They had photographs on the dresser. Their wedding, the kids' adoption day, family vacations, holidays. But there were also photographs of Sarah and Michael, honored and remembered, part of the story that had led them here. "You ever wonder what they would think?" Julia asked, looking at the photographs. "About us, about the kids, about all of this." Harrison wrapped his arms around her. "I think they would be happy for us. I think they would understand that love is not a finite resource. It expands. It makes room. I used to feel so guilty, like being happy with you somehow diminished what I had with Michael. And now I understand that I am capable of loving multiple people in different ways. Michael will always be part of me, just like Sarah will always be part of you. But we built something new together, something that honors our past while embracing our future." They went to bed that night holding hands, secure in the life they had created, grateful for the second chance they had been given. More years passed. Emma went to college to study psychology, determined to help kids who had experienced trauma like she had. Lucas followed 2 years later, pursuing music composition. The house felt emptier but not empty, because Harrison and Julia had each other. They traveled, finally taking the trips they had always talked about. They volunteered together at the animal shelter, a tradition Julia had maintained all these years. They hosted family gatherings, becoming the center of a sprawling chosen family that included Caroline's clan, Julia's brother's family, friends who had supported them through everything. Harrison eventually sold his company, ready to retire and focus on the things that actually mattered. He and Julia started a foundation that supported children in foster care, funding programs that kept siblings together and provided resources for adoptive families. It was their way of giving back, of helping others find the same hope they had discovered. "Any regrets?" Julia asked him one evening as they sat on their porch swing, now in their 60s, watching the sunset. "Not a single one. You? Only that we did not find each other sooner. But then, we were not ready sooner. We had to go through what we went through to become the people we needed to be for each other." Harrison pulled her close. Two broken people who learned that broken things can be mended, that hearts can heal. That love can happen more than once if you are brave enough to let it. We were brave. We were terrified. Sometimes that is the same thing. Emma and Lucas both came home for the holidays that year, bringing partners and so much noise and laughter that the house felt alive in ways Harrison never thought possible. He watched his grown children help Julia cook dinner, saw them interact with Caroline's grandchildren, observed the family they had all become. "You did good, little brother," Caroline said, appearing beside him with 2 glasses of wine. She handed him one. "We both did we not? All of us who refused to give up, who kept believing that good things could still happen." "To second chances," Caroline raised her glass. "To second chances," Harrison echoed, "and to having the courage to take them." That night, as Julia fell asleep in his arms, Harrison thought about the journey that had brought them here. The loss and grief, the unexpected meeting, the slow, careful building of trust and love. The decision to adopt, to become parents, to create a family from the pieces of their broken lives. He thought about Sarah and how much he had loved her, how her death had nearly destroyed him. He thought about Michael and the sacrifice he had made, the hole he had left in Julia's life. He thought about how easy it would have been to stay locked in grief, to never risk opening up again. But he had taken the risk. Julia had taken the risk. And together they had built something extraordinary. Emma had asked him once, when she was about 12, if he had loved Sarah more than he loved Julia. He had thought carefully before answering. "I loved Sarah completely, with my whole heart. When she died, I thought that was it. I thought I was done loving anyone that way. But then I met your mom, and I learned that the heart is more resilient than we give it credit for. I love your mom completely too, with my whole heart. It is not less than what I felt for Sarah. It is different, but just as real, just as deep. Love does not diminish love. It adds to it." Emma had nodded, seeming to understand in the way that kids who had experienced loss understood these complicated truths. Now, holding Julia, Harrison felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for the love he had experienced twice in one lifetime. Gratitude for the children they had saved and who had saved them in return. Gratitude for family and friends who had refused to let them disappear into their grief. Gratitude for second chances and the courage to take them. "I love you," he whispered to Julia, though she was already asleep. In the morning, they would wake up and make breakfast for their visiting children. They would laugh and tell stories and continue building the beautiful, complicated life they had created. But for now, Harrison just held his wife and marveled at how a chance meeting at a charity gala had changed everything. Two people who had lost everything had found each other. Two broken hearts had healed together. Two lives that seemed over had been given a second act. And that second act had been even better than they could have imagined. Harrison fell asleep with a smile on his face, grateful beyond measure for the unexpected gift of learning to love again. And for Julia, the remarkable woman who had shown him that broken things could be made beautiful, that endings could become beginnings, and that the heart always had room for more love if you were brave enough to let it in. Their story was not about forgetting the past or replacing what they had lost. It was about honoring that loss while refusing to let it define them. It was about choosing hope over despair, connection over isolation, love over fear. It was about two people who never expected to learn to love again, who did anyway, and who built something magnificent from the ashes of their grief. And it was, in every way that mattered, a happily ever after neither of them had dared to dream possible, but both had been brave enough to reach for when the opportunity appeared. The end of their story was really a beginning, the start of a legacy of love and resilience that would continue through Emma and Lucas and the generations that came after them. A reminder that even in our darkest moments, hope persists. That love, real love, never truly dies. It transforms, it evolves, and if we are very lucky and very brave, it finds us again when we need it most. Harrison and Julia had learned to love again, and in doing so, they had taught everyone around them that second chances were not just possible, but beautiful. That life after loss could be full and rich and meaningful. That the human heart, for all its fragility, was capable of remarkable healing. They had found each other in a moment when both had felt invisible, lost in their own private grief. They had built a friendship, then a romance, then a marriage, then a family. They had created a life neither had thought possible. And every day, they woke up grateful for the courage they had found to take that first step toward each other at a charity gala, when Harrison had approached a lonely woman by a window and asked if she was plotting her escape. That single moment of bravery had changed everything. Years from now, when Emma and Lucas told their own children about their parents, they would talk about resilience and love and second chances. They would talk about how Harrison and Julia had saved each other and then saved them. They would talk about a family built not on biology, but on choice and commitment and love. But most of all, they would talk about how two broken people had refused to stay broken. How they had found each other and built something whole. How they had learned that love was not something you experienced once if you were lucky, but something you could find again and again if you remained open to it. That was the real gift Harrison and Julia had given their children. The knowledge that healing was possible, that love could survive loss, and that the bravest thing a person could do was keep their heart open even when it had been shattered. As Julia often said when speaking at adoption events or foster care fundraisers, we do not love because it is safe. We love because we are human, and love is what makes us whole. We love because the alternative, a life without connection and vulnerability and deep human bond, is not really living at all. Harrison and Julia had chosen to really live. They had chosen each other, chosen their children, chosen hope over fear every single day. And in doing so, they had created something that would outlast them, a family built on the radical belief that broken things could be mended and broken hearts could love again. That belief, that choice, made all the difference.